the Lions Den with Stephen Carr. I am here with friend and patriot Cliff Maloney, a PA Chase and CEO of Citizens Alliance for Pennsylvania, the #1 ballot chaser and door knocker. So Cliff, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started with CAP and how you got started PA Chase, going back to when you first started doing doors and how you got involved.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me today, Stephen. Glad to be here. I'm sure we'll dive into a lot of fun projects and stories. I got involved in politics due to Ron Paul. Ron Paul back in the day when he was in Congress, when he ran for president, a guy that was consistent, didn't vote for tax increases for 30 years, never voted for new wars, never voted, for so many things that just I had never seen consistency like that. I got involved because of Ron. Back in 2012 for his presidential campaign, I actually got to knock doors in Iowa. That was my first experience doing that in -5 temperatures out there in the cold of wintertime. But it was a fun experience. In 2016, I was on the Rand Paul campaign, his son, the senator from Kentucky, and I was in charge of all of his campus efforts. That's how I got to know Charlie Kirk pretty well. Was running Students for Rand back in 2015 for the 16 race. And then after Rand dropped out, I went over to his Senate race to help with a lot of the get out the vote stuff. And one of the things we noticed during that campaign, because remember, when Donald Trump won in 2016, that same night, Rand Paul had to be reelected, right, to the U.S. Senate. And so we noticed with that campaign that the Democrats and the Republicans spent pretty much the same amount of money on all the electioneering, whether it was ads, whether it was texting, mail, digital, TV, radio. It was all the same. And then the one thing that was different, we had volunteers and they had volunteers. But the one thing that was different is they had paid door knockers. We didn't do that. So I just started thinking maybe we should test that out. And so we started to run a couple tests, and lo and behold, once we got to the 2018 cycle, and really since then, I've been hell-bent on taking what I call winnable races at the state level and trying to build a bench of hardcore freedom fighters by using door knocking as the tactic to do it. The left did it for years; they did it for decades, and so it's something that we've done. 2018, 2020, I was with a group called Young Americans for Liberty. 2021, and with Citizens Alliance, we operate in multiple states. Obviously, Pennsylvania is my home state, being from Delaware County. So I love the work that we get to do in Pennsylvania. But since 2018, it's been about state legislative races. We've won over 400 of them across the country, which I'm very excited about. Everything kind of changed for me, Stephen, in 2023 for the 2024 cycle. Charlie Kirk and Tyler Boyer and the team at Turning Point, they kind of encouraged me to run a Chase program in PA. And so we launched that program in January, I believe, of 2024. And that really put us on the map at Citizens Alliance, because now instead of just doing state races, we were able to go in and run the PA Chase program, take Trump from 20% of the mail-in against Biden to 34.5% against Kamala Harris, and win the state. Now, obviously, there are plenty of other organizations. There's a lot of candidates, patriots like Scott Perry, so many different people that contributed to the win. But we are now tripling down on states like Pennsylvania. And I'm happy to talk through kind of the 2026 plan. But that's how we got to where we are today. And as we say at Citizens Alliance, doors win wars. And so we try to pick the best battles for liberty that we can knock doors in.
That's wow. That's really going back there for sure. I've never actually seen YAF doing their deployments because I used to follow them on like Instagram and Facebook, and I would always see them. I think they did one for recently with, I forget what state she's in, Harriet Hedgeman. They did a deployment in her state for them and endorsed her.
Yeah, Wyoming, which is running for U.S. Senate now, Harriet Hageman. Yeah.
Yeah, Hickman, yeah. And of course, a few of my friends in the Young Republicans are also on the YAF in college instead of the YRs, as they are now. So I also heard about them, because those two are like Turning Point Action or Turning Point and uh, YAF are like rivals in college, kind of like I was told. So um, so they would same motives and everything, but just different look on perspective. So going so as you said before, or as you said that you turned 2023 and 2024 was what really turned for you. What was that? What was the click that was like, hey, let's do this? This is what we got to do.
Yeah, good question. So, first, I'd say that the moment that I finally decided to do the PHAs in conversations, with Charlie, with my COO, Justin Grice, was when we figured out that 141,000 Republicans in Pennsylvania in 2020 requested a mail in ballot and never sent it back. And, Trump lost PA by 80,000 votes. That was wild to me, right? How is there 141,000 people that took the time to go out and request a ballot, but then didn't actually send it back once the ballot got to them? And by the way, we polled these people, right? I went out and talked to them. There was nothing nefarious. They just didn't vote. They didn't send their ballot back. And so that was kind of my moment of just saying, you know what, we could have made the difference in 2020, right? Nobody went to the door of these people and said, hey, why don't you send back your ballot? Right. And so that was kind of a pivotal moment. But I didn't realize at the time that agreeing to do it, would really just put us on the map, as an organization that was doing something that needed to be done, that was unique. For a while, I was an operator. Um, and I still feel as if I am, but the reality is, I was never the influencer, right? I'm not the guy on college campuses. I'm not trying to change hearts and minds. We do the blocking and tackling at Citizens Alliance, right? We know what lane we're in. So it's just been interesting for me to, be doing media, to go on Newsmax, to do the Charlie Kirk show regularly, to be on with Jack Posobiec or Steve Bannon. Like, typically I'm on giving political ramifications to current events, but it was doing the PHAs that really opened that door. It really presented an opportunity for me to get exposure that then obviously helps us to raise the resources to hire more door knockers, right? I mean, that's the reality of what people don't understand, that to run these large scale operations, most of what I have to do is I have to go out and raise the money, right? We've got the people, we've got the candidates, we've got the battlegrounds. You need the dollars to compete with the left. And my objective, I always tell everybody, is I don't think there's an off year anymore. I just don't. I think there's no off year in politics. I think you need to be permanent on the ground. You never go home. And so that's what I'm building towards, is to have enough resources regularly every single year that we put people on the ground in swing districts and they never go home. That's what we should be doing on the right.
Yeah, and I think that's where we kind of are at in 2025 with the statewide election as well. We kind of became complacent because, well, Trump's in office. Everything's good. We got back to House. We got back to Senate. And nobody cares about the following election in 2025. Nobody cares about this election in 2026. And we just get complacent, and people and voters start forgetting that, oh, there's an election like almost every 4 months here, or 3 to 4 months here in Pennsylvania. It's not like anywhere else. It's like, and we got to keep on our feet. We got to keep informed on it, every 3 or 4 months, and remind each other that there's an election. get out and get the GOTV going, and every committee, county committee, and GOP in Pennsylvania, in grassroots organizations like PHAs and Turning Point Action with Noah Fomica and Scott Presler's Early Vote Action, which we're all thankful for, because most of us can't do half the work that you guys do. But and that's where we lose most of our elections, and the Democrats seem to be pouring in millions of dollars into their candidates for donations and endorsements, and we end up losing statewide races.
Yeah, and I think that's the right attitude, right? We need that realignment. We need people to start thinking like that. So I agree with that.
Yeah. So going forward with the 2025-2026 game plan, with November coming up, we just had the primary for Stacey Garrity, Jason Ritchie, and our state house and state senate and candidates. What is the game plan to beat Josh Shapiro through PHAs?
So 2026, I'll give you the basic top lines for Pennsylvania. We've been on the ground since January. We are in all three of these swing congressional districts. So that's District 7 with Ryan McKenzie, District 8 with Rob Bresnahan, District 10 with Scott Perry. We've been in Lancaster for the Senate District 36, Tom Jones. And now we're starting to move to other targets. But obviously, top of the ticket is Stacey, and we're all in. We're going to knock 750,000 doors total. Stacey's on every ballot, so every door that we knock on is a benefit, to the statewide race. Shapiro is going to be very tough to beat, but Stacey's running a great campaign, and I think she's going to give it her all. She's one of the most credible candidates we've seen statewide. She holds a record for the most votes ever received statewide, Pennsylvania history. So I think there's a lot of variables that are out of our control and out of Pennsylvanians' control. It's just some of the national stuff and how things look and what motivates people. But I will warn everybody out there that it could be one of the roughest nights that we've had in a long time if people aren't motivated and if people don't vote, right? If the message is not heard, if we don't do the work to turn out the low propensity like the Democrats do, we could lose all three congressionals. We could lose the state senate. We could lose the governor's seat, the governor's race. So I don't say that to be doomsday. I say it to be realistic, right? I don't like the people that are always hoorah, rah, like it's going to be great. No, we got to do the work. If we do the work, it's got a chance to be great, right? If we do the work, then maybe we'll produce some solid results. But that's what is. We're going to find out here very shortly. By the way, people start voting in July, August. People are voting in 3 months in Pennsylvania. Let's remember that. This is not, we don't have 5 months. Everybody keeps saying that. We start voting in 3 months. So I just think that that's something that, a lot of people don't understand, that it's really, really election season in Pennsylvania. It is not election day. It's not election week. It's not election month. We have 50 days of voting. So I think our plan is to target all of those races I mentioned. We're protecting Rosemary Brown, Frank Ferry, Tracy Pennycook, and then obviously, like I said, that seat in Lancaster we're trying to flip. So we have some state senate targets. For state house, we're trying to take out some of the vulnerable Democrats. But honestly, a lot of what we're going to be doing is defense to try to protect some of these state house seats that are going to be tough. But it's going to take a lot of work, and we're ready to do it.
In the 2026 primary, how many of the houses have you knocked percentage-wise where you have found a voter has not turned in the ballot and it was laying on their table?
Well, for 2026, a lot of what we're doing right now is not chasing ballots, right? For the primary, what we're doing is we're going out with request forms. right? We're trying to get people to actually request a ballot. Now, in the special primary for George Margettis, who won on May 19th, it's a little different because we were actually trying to get people to return a ballot specifically to vote for George. But look, I'll share some numbers with you, and it might not answer your question directly, but I want to give you some historical data that we have found, and that is, if you take all the low propensity voters, which, by the way, there are 900,000 low propensity Republicans in Pennsylvania. Let me say that again because it's important. There are 900,000 low propensity, meaning they voted in 0, 1, or 2 of the last 4 general elections. There are 900,000 of those in Pennsylvania. That's the whole target. That's the rub. That's the Super Bowl, is how do we get those people to vote, right? We don't need to talk to Democrats. We don't need to talk to moderate. We need to talk to independent. Those are Republicans that are going to vote straight ticket Republican if you can get them to vote. What we found is if these low propensity voters who are not likely to vote, meaning their chances of voting are slim and none, if you get a ballot sent to their house, meaning they request a ballot, 70% of them will vote. That's the whole game, right? That's the rule now, is you need to get those people to request a ballot. The Democrats spend all their time on that. Then they develop a habit. They develop the skill set of being able to consistently vote by mail because they're not going to vote in person. And by the way, Stephen, for anybody out there that says, oh, well, Cliff wants to take people away from voting on election day, that's the most secure way to vote. I'm not saying that at all, right? I'm not trying to take people that are 4-4s that vote every election day and move them to vote by mail. That doesn't change the delta at all. What I'm trying to do is take the people that aren't going to vote, but they're registered Republican, and get a mail ballot sent to them because then they're more likely to vote.
Yeah. I mean, usually the 4 out of 4s already know who they're voting for and usually vote anyway. And anybody that's a hard Republican is already going to be showing up at the polling place or voting as well. It's the 0s, 1s, 2s, and 3s that are not voting or haven't voted in so many elections that are low propensity voters. And the more people you get to go out to vote or cast a ballot, the higher the turnout's going to be, the better our candidates can win. And that's how GOTV works. And I mean, mail-in ballots are exceptional to a degree, I would say, because I mean, it's definitely worked for the Democrats on almost every single daggone election that we have had, all the way from 2020 when it started to now. But and that's your job, right? Is collecting the mail-in ballots to get them into the office, or having them mail them in themselves, because nobody's doing that and we're losing. So, and like, I can't believe you said what, 900,000 or 900. Yeah, you said 900,000 for Pennsylvania, right?
Correct.
That's a gold mine there. If those 900,000 low propensity voters would cast their ballot or go out to vote on election day, we wouldn't be in the shape we were in. I mean, it clearly worked. I was part of Trump Force 47 for his campaign, and that's exactly what we focused on, was low propensity voters, going to their doors, knocking on their doors and, say, hey, there's an election coming up, I'm going to vote for Trump. And these are all Trump voters, Trump Republican voters from before that were low voters. And, and it worked. I mean, it was slowly, winning the White House back on election day. By the end of the election, almost by middle of the general primary, we won it. And that's how it was. I mean, plus we had you guys on the ground, and we had early vote action in Nova Potomac with Turning Point action in Pennsylvania. That's how it works. Is we all work as a team, from the GOP to grassroots organizations, to get out the vote, to get the ballots done. And I certainly think we need more organizations like you guys, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country, to get the ballots done. And I certainly think we need more organizations like you guys, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country, to get the ballots done. And I certainly think we need more organizations like you guys, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country, to get the ballots done. And I certainly think we need more organizations like you guys, not just in Pennsylvania, but in different states. I mean, I watched it. Was it the interview with you and Charlie on the video that you said you told me to come back to Pennsylvania because that's where we're going to win the White House because you were in another state, and sure enough, you came back and we won it.
Yeah, no, I'll never forget that moment. It was a beautiful moment. That was election day. Charlie had called me in the morning. I did Steve Bannon's show that morning, and Charlie called me and said, "Hey, I want you to do the show tonight. We're going to do election night coverage, and I want you to give us the details on Pennsylvania." And I said, "Sure." And the whole reason was, he said, "Well, if Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina come in, um, if you didn't screw up PA, we're going to call it, and you'll have the opportunity to be there when we analyze it." And, my office, I was in Harrisburg at our headquarters, and just, everybody started screaming, but I was in like a separate little like shack of an office. And the door bursts open, and, I'm seeing that Fox News called it, and I got to, kind of say it live on the air. And then that clip was seen over 400 million times. I mean, it was a life-changing moment for me, because all the work that everybody did led up to that moment. I mean, they tried to put a lot of our friends in prison, after J6, and it was kind of this moment. And some people stuck with Trump, some people didn't, and everything
Yeah,
everything built up. And I was lucky to be a part of it, to get to announce it.
I remember. I don't know. Might have been this election, the 2024 election, or it might have been the 2016 one. But um, it was just Charlie on his show, and he was just like it was counting down, and he was almost in tears, knowing that we won the White House back. And I was like, that was a precious moment right there to see him. It was like he broke character for that minute.
Right. That's exactly correct.
Um, so, um, so the other big thing we have going against us, and I don't know how you're seeing it on your side, is the Gen Z and the youth movement. We have lost a fellow patriot who was awesome with the conservative Gen Z movement. Will almost be a year coming up in September that he's been gone. Um, how do you see winning that back? And do you see we lose? Do we see it? Do you see Pennsylvania losing that? Um, Losing that vote and not being as energized on the youth side.
Can you hear me, Stephen? Hey, can you hear me? Stephen, can you hear me?
Guys, for the delay. We just had the moment of cutting out and in and out, and we just lost We just lost him. We just lost